Number 10. Playboy. Sylvie Cachet was a highly qualified fashion designer and worked for big company names like Victoria's Secret. She even became their head swimsuit designer for a while. She later met Nicholas Brooks, who had just dropped out of college and was struggling to keep up with his job. They soon started dating and became the classic on and off couple. On December 9th, 2010, around 12:30 a.m., Cachet told the clerk of the hotel they stayed at that her boyfriend had accidentally set their room on fire. Apparently, he left lit candles behind the bed while he got high on drugs. They were able to put out the fire before anything happened, but the couple didn't want to stay because of the smoky smell. So, they moved to room 20. Around 2 a.m., the staff of the hotel started getting a bunch of complaints from other guests about water dripping through the ceiling from the room. So, staff made their way there and knocked on the door, but no one answered. Eventually, they just let themselves in. Once they got into the room, they discovered Cachet's lifeless body sitting in an overflowing tub. The ambulance was called and paramedics tried to save her with CPR, but they were too late. Sylvie was pronounced dead on the scene at exactly 3:33 a.m. When police inspected her body, they found marks on her neck that showed signs of strangulation, as well as a bite mark on her hand. The autopsy confirmed she'd been held underwater and strangled. Brooks was questioned after the body was found since he was the last person to see her. According to him, he found someone he knew that night and went to have a few drinks with him, but the police managed to get a search warrant and found his DNA on the bathtub and faucet at the murder scene. Brooks was soon arrested and charged with his girlfriend's death. During the trial, he pled not guilty to all charges but was convicted for second-degree murder. Nicholas Brooks was sentenced to 25 years in prison and will be eligible for parole in 2038. Brooks was also supposed to pay Cachet's family $12.5 million as a part of the civil judgment and restitution fees. Despite being jailed, he still received royalties from the music his Oscar-winning dad, Joseph Brooks, wrote. So, Cachet's family decided to file a lawsuit to prevent him from getting any more of the money, at least until he pays them back in full. But he still hasn't given the family a single penny despite getting hundreds of thousands of dollars while in prison. Number 9. Box truck. New York City is known for insane amounts of traffic. 24-year-old Molly Pearson was going about her day on a scooter when she was suddenly run over by a box truck in Brooklyn on November 2nd, 2021. According to the NYPD, she was completely thrown off her scooter near the intersection of Meeker and Skillman Avenue. Apparently, both the box truck driver and Pearson were turning onto Skillman when the driver ran her over. He probably didn't notice she was there. The ambulance was called and they arrived immediately. But Pearson was already extremely injured, and by the time she was transported to the hospital, she had passed away. According to Pearson's family, she was kind and had a bright future. She loved the outdoors and enjoyed hiking. She also followed the motto, "Never leave someone behind on the trail." So she would always make sure everyone got off the trail safely when she hiked. No one has recently been arrested as of yet, but police are still investigating the case. Number 8. $100 of death. 19-year-old Crystal Bayron Neves was a very anxious person who was well aware of how dangerous New York is. So, when she got a job at the local Burger King, she asked to work during the day instead of night just to be safe. But she wasn't given the morning shift she wanted and had to work during the early morning. On January 9th, 2022, her biggest nightmare came true. A man with a gun entered the fast food restaurant in a black mask around 1 a.m. He told her to give him $100, so she looked for the key to unlock the cash register. Once she unlocked it, she handed him the money, but the man shot her anyway. She was rushed to the hospital where they pronounced her dead. Right before he shot Crystal, the shooter also punched the manager of the restaurant in the face. After searching, police finally found the man and arrested him. The man was later identified as 30-year-old Winston Glynn. He was charged with robbery, murder, possession of a weapon, and use of a firearm. He is currently behind bars and will be sentenced at a later date, hopefully for many, many years. Have you ever been to New York City? What was your experience like? Let us know in the comments, and if you like this video so far, subscribe to see more. Number 7. Crazy Ex. On December 18th, 2022, 30-year-old Justin Moncada was gunned down by 31-year-old Adam Thomas. Apparently, Adam was a jealous ex and decided to kill his ex-girlfriend's new man. After the 911 call, police arrived at the crime scene to find Moncada with bullet wounds in his head. The police described the shooting as a domestic violence incident. Right after killing Moncada, Thomas aimed the gun towards his ex-girlfriend, Kelsey Ogondel, and pulled the trigger. But the chamber was empty, so she miraculously survived. Thomas apparently broke into the house through the front window and confronted the couple. According to Ogondel, the men wrestled at the front door for a while until Thomas shot him 10 to 15 times. He was charged with murder, attempted murder, robbery, burglary, and criminal possession of a weapon. Thomas and Ogondel broke up after he stole her car, crashed it, then abandoned it. So, you know, all the things a good boyfriend does. Ogondel and Moncada had a 6-year-old daughter together that they were looking forward to spending time with during Christmas. Moncada's mother, Evelyn Vargas, talked about how good of a father her son was and that he worked his whole life to get to where he was. She also called out Thomas and said he was a coward and that she wanted justice to be served. Both of his parents said they'd support Ogondel, since everyone was traumatized by this horrible incident. What's weird is that there was a very similar event just a week before, where a man was gunned down by the father of his girlfriend's daughter. The murderer in this case also came through a window, but the shooter of this case hasn't been found. Number 6. Pushed. 61-year-old Simon Marital had been accused of pushing a woman down to her death in a New York City subway track. The man was seen using both his hands to push her as an incoming train was approaching the busy station, according to bystanders. The woman he killed was later recognized as 40-year-old Michelle Go. Michelle was just using her phone, minding her business, when the attack happened, and the police said it was completely unprovoked. Michelle suffered from severe trauma all over her body and was later pronounced dead at the scene when authorities arrived. Marital was actually a homeless man who ran away right after the murder. He later turned himself in at a nearby police station. It turns out Marital already had a warrant out for a parole violation as well as 2 other violent felony convictions. Go herself actually used to spend her free time volunteering as an advocate for homeless people. Little did she know one of them would kill her. Number 5. Hate crime. Ever since the start of the pandemic, there has been an increase in hate crimes towards Asians, especially in New York. One of these victims was 35-year-old Christina Luna Lee. On February 13, 2022, surveillance footage from the entrance of Christie's street apartment in Chinatown showed Lee returning home at around 4:20 a.m. Right after she went in, the man followed her inside and closed the door behind him. He was later identified as Asamid Nash. He followed Lee up to the 6th floor where her apartment was and kept some distance between them to not make her suspicious. The moment she entered her apartment, Nash ran all the way to her door and pushed himself inside. Someone else in the building reported hearing a woman scream for help and called 911. When the police got there, they said they could hear her calling for help from inside, but they didn't go in. It's currently unclear why the officers couldn't go inside the apartment right away, but they heard the victim's screams suddenly go silent. At one point, Nash started imitating a woman's voice and told the police they didn't need any help. Obviously, that didn't work, so he tried to run away through the fire escape but saw an officer on the rooftop and went back in. The officer on the roof said he saw something yellow in his hands. The police finally got inside at 5:40 a.m. and found Lee naked from the waist up on her bathroom floor. She had more than 40 stab wounds on her body. Nash was found hiding underneath the bed with a stab wound on his torso and several cuts on his hands. The police found a yellow knife right behind Lee's dresser. Nash has since been charged with first-degree murder, first-degree burglary, and sexually motivated burglary. He will be sentenced on a later date and is currently behind bars. Number 4. Dark coincidence. On February 12, 2022, a 35-year-old man was walking between train cars on the southbound J train in Manhattan around 9 p.m. He suddenly fell on the tracks below right as the train was coming. He was struck but was taken to the hospital in a stable condition. According to a Metropolitan Transport Authority spokesperson, the man might have been smoking between train cars when he slipped onto the tracks. What's really strange is that just an hour and a half later, another man in his 30s was walking on the train tracks in Midtown Manhattan, also heading southbound. He was struck by a train as well, but wasn't as lucky. This man was pronounced dead at the scene by NYPD. Right before this happened, New York City Mayor Eric Adams made an announcement on February 11, 2022 of a citywide subway safety plan that would be aimed at reducing homelessness as well as crime. Number 3. Stabbing spree. One of the biggest tragedies that ever happened in New York City was the Maxim Gelman stabbing spree. On February 11, 2022, around 5 a.m., Gelman stabbed his stepfather to death in Brooklyn. This happened right after his argument with his mother about driving his stepfather's car. Apparently, Gelman thought DEA agents were going to come after him, so he is planning to run away to the Dominican Republic. After hearing the commotion, his stepfather came outside and started swearing at Gelman. So, Gelman took a knife and stabbed him over 55 times. After this, he took his stepfather's car and drove off. He actually ran over the crossing guard and broke her leg in the getaway process. Gelman went to a woman's house that he was reportedly obsessed with and stabbed her mother to death. He then waited for the woman, Yelena Bolchenko, to return home. Once she arrived, he stabbed her too 11 times until she was dead. But he wasn't done. He started driving his car faster and faster to get away from the crime scenes, only to crash into another vehicle. Gelman stabbed and killed the other driver, Arthur DiCrescento, after he confronted him about the crash. After stabbing him, Gelman ran over a pedestrian with his car, killing him too. He continued his stabbing spree until he was finally caught by a rider on the Manhattan subway train that happened to be a martial arts expert. The man held Gelman down until the cops arrived. During the trial, Gelman was called unruly and was laughing or yelling the whole time. He pleaded guilty to all charges and was sentenced to 200 years in prison. Number 2. Wrong place, wrong time. On February 18, 2022, a 21-year-old college student named Elizabeth Howell was shot 3 times in northern New York near her university's campus. She was a senior at the SUNY Potsdam Crane School of Music. When the police arrived at the scene at 6 p.m., they found Howell unconscious, but alive with her gunshot wounds. They took her to Canton Potsdam Hospital, where she was soon pronounced dead. 31-year-old Michael J. Snow was arrested and charged with second-degree murder on February 19th. Snow was not affiliated with the college at all, according to the school itself, and it's completely unclear as to how Snow and Howell were connected. Police are currently asking the public for any kind of information on Snow's whereabouts from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. that night. Howell was a cellist that performed with the Crane Symphony Orchestra. According to Dr. Phil Neeser, the president of SUNY Potsdam, she was supposed to graduate this year. Her parents say she was at the wrong place at the wrong time. They also said Howell wasn't someone who had any enemies and wouldn't know someone that wanted to kill her. Number 1. Youngest victim. Gang members are everywhere in New York, and we mean everywhere. More often than not, they end up killing people that weren't even involved in gang conflicts. That's exactly what happened to 1-year-old Davell Gardner, who was sitting in his stroller during a family barbecue on July 12, 2020. The killer was 25-year-old Deshaun Austin, who was just one of 18 other gang members charged in a 63-count indictment. They killed 3 others and injured 8 other people in the crossfire. According to authorities, 2 men went near the family gathering at Madison Street in Bed-Stuy before midnight. Out of nowhere, someone started shooting from across the park. Gardner got shot in the stomach and died later in the hospital, just 2 months away from his 2nd birthday, just starting out his life. Police think that Akeem Atris was the man who drove the getaway car, while Austin was one of many gunmen. Austin was arrested and charged with murder and attempted murder. Thanks for watching. Which of these New York crimes did you find the craziest? Do you know any other stories? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed it, be sure to hit subscribe for more. See you next time on the Bad Badger.